is he says that Allah gets the Trinity wrong in the Quran. That's the first point. So he says Allah can't be maximally perfect because Allah is not omniscient. So you have omniscience, you have omnipotence, and you have omnibenevolence. There's three omnis that all theists more or less agree on. We believe Allah is all powerful, all knowing, and Allah is all benevolent. Yeah. And so when it concerns that point about the omniscience of Allah, they say, well, the Quran gets Trinity wrong, and therefore, how can he be God if he's not maximally knowing? So I deal with this thing. In fact, I think it's the largest chapter in the whole book is, in fact, this section, because I go through many things. I kind of, within the arguments. But one of the things I focus on is the key verse that they always misquote or selectively quote is in chapter 5 of the Quran, verse 116 to 118. It's a dialogue between Allah and Isa alayhi salam, which happens in the end and on the day of judgment. At the end, when Allah says to Isa alayhi salam, "Anta qulta lin-nas ittakhiduni wa ummi ilahin min dunillah." Did you tell people to take you and your mother as two gods besides Allah? Okay. Now Christians like William Lane Craig, like Billy Sikhon, like James Langford, even like Samuel Zwemer, even Thomas Aquinas, they all rely on this one single verse. But that's the point. They don't quote the whole dialogue between Allah and Isa alayhi salam. None ever. So, and what I found is that no one's done this. In fact, out of them, none of them have mentioned the whole verse, the whole dialogue. But they, all of them, they mentioned the first verse. Some mentioned the first and the second. Some have the first and half of the second. But none of them have all of it. So because the all of it is in fact the proof against the whole premise, and it's a big proof, in fact, against them. So when Allah says that, did you tell people take you and your mother as two? Now Christians would say therefore, this is showing that the Muslims perceive Trinity as God, Jesus, and Mary. This is the main thing that they say. Even when I was writing my first book on the Crusades, there was one individual who wrote a book, before me, Crusade historian, and he made this terrible blunder, in his book by saying about how they say the Quran misrepresents Trinity, and I had to clarify that. In fact, I had to find a room to clarify that somewhere in my book, which I did in my book as a footnote somewhere. But this is a typical thing, for Christians to say.